Hello and welcome, everybody. This is our discussion for the Dark Tower, Wind Through the Keyhole, as well as just Dark Tower in general, because we're kind of coming back to the Dark Tower. My name is Joseph Carrel. I write under the name J.R. Carrel, and I will send it off to Ursi.
Hey, I'm Ursi. My channel is called Cersei's Books. I read all over the place, and I talk about all different kinds of stuff on my page. So, or my channel, I should say. So yeah, I love reading books.
And my name is Jeff Lane. I write under the name of Jeff Lane, and I write speculative thrillers and fun stuff like that. And I like hanging out with all these bookish people that we get to talk about books with.
Yes.
That is the best part of BookTube, is this right here. Especially with, a series like The Dark Tower, where it's all over the place and there's so much, so many different things to talk about, and it's got a little bit of everything, sci-fi, horror, portal fantasy, and like the title says, we're coming back to the Dark Tower for Wind Through the Keyhole, which Jeff, you may know better than I do. What is this like? Was this 5 years after the end?
That's a good question. I should have looked that up beforehand. I don't know how long it was, but it was definitely after he finished the cycle. Everyone was assuming that was the end, and then there were these rumors that he was going to write an insert book between 4 and 5, and that really got the Dark Tower community a buzz at that point.
Yeah. So I guess we can kind of start off and Ursi, what were your initial thoughts about Wind Through the Keyhole?
I kind of wish I didn't read it after reading Dark Tower. I think because I finished it way after you guys did your discussion, and I loved book 7, like top tier, one of my favorite books. Now I was crying. I was a mess with this book. And then it was just like, well, here's a story. I was like,
same.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was interesting. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's not terrible. It's not, at least I don't think it's terrible. I think it's interesting. I think that it's a really interesting concept that he did in terms of like making it sort of like a mystery whodunit with like another story of like a mystery, how to handle domestic abuse. Like, he talks about really important issues in it. So I won't take that away from him, because I think those kind of stories need to be told, right? I just don't know if this was the place for it. I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't make it make sense.
I have some opinions kind of what you said brewing in my mind, but I want to hear what Jeff says first.
Sure. And I like Brandy's comment there that she was glad that she read it in the publication order, because it's kind of like going back to, I think she said, a cozier time. And I think when we were talking about the reading order, initially we were going to put this one between 4 and 5, and then I had floated the suggestion to read it at the end, do it in publication order. So Ursi,
It's okay.
Probably your pardon. I have forgotten the face of my father.
You've forgotten the face of your father. It's okay. I mean, it's not a big deal. I'm just like,
But I remember reading it.
I was on such a high.
Yeah, and I wonder if that makes a difference in that you can read them all because they're out now, versus when I read them, the last few I was reading just as they were being published, and then I had that gap, and then I had and then I got to read this one. So it was almost like a bit of a revisitation. Although now reading it this time, I almost think that if he had written this without the little wrapper of them going in the meeting house to survive the Stark blast. Roland, Jake, Susanna, Eddie. Like I think you could have done away with that layer of this turducken of a story, and just done the young Roland bit, and then young Roland telling 100%. The fairy tale.
That I actually think, even marketing wise, that would have been better. You could have been like a prequel to the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
And I think marketing, it would have been even bigger. Because I mean, again, I just read it, or just listened to the audiobook just now. So I don't know how big it was when it came out. I don't know if it was received as like, oh my gosh, another Dark Tower, we're back, or if it's just like, or if word of mouth was like, oh, it's just a kind of, it's like a story, just a kind of. It seems like he was like, you think when I go off on these 3-hour tangents, no,
I got a 10-hour one for you.
I got 10 hours, but and like, I liked the story. The story was good. And how she was saying that he's putting some stuff in there that it is good for people to write about, but maybe it doesn't really belong in the Dark Tower.
I don't know. It's like,
because and there was a little bit of this earlier in when he's talking about his mother and and everything, her affair. So there was a little bit of precedence for it. But again, I think this was written in like 2012 or something. And I read a new-ish book from him, like 2018, and it was very much like, let me tell you about my views on things more than what the story and the plot could be. And I was kind of disappointed, and I kind of feel like the same way, like, well, you didn't really have to push this section so hard. Like, let's just, enjoy your story. But if they would have made it a prequel, I think, and just do away with everything, like you said, Jeff, I think that would have been the perfect move.
I think in this case, there are some times of late, Stephen King can be very heavy-handed with his issue writing. This one, I don't think was that to me, that didn't, the part with Big Kel and the domestic abuse and all of that felt very much intertwined and part of the story and good motivation. It wasn't preachy. One example of more preachy King would be the one he wrote with Owen King, Sleeping Beauties. That one I've described it as two white millionaires mansplaining feminism to Hicks and Flyover Country. It's very heavy-handed, and I don't know. This one didn't cross my mind. This wasn't like an example.
Yeah, I did not feel
into fiction.
I didn't feel the way I felt when I read Elevation. This was not even close to being like that.
Right.
So I'm curious with you guys, like, being that you've read way more King than I have. How do you feel with like the difference? Like you said, like right now he interjects like his political views, which again, I'll read a political book all day. Right? And like, I don't mind it, but growing up reading King and how, his just creepy, weird stories, and then seeing him switch to being more like that, like political, like how does that make you guys like approach his works?
It took it for me, I would say part of it, I'm going to speak out of two sides of my mouth for a second, because part of it is it's kind of always been there. He's always had issues that he's tackled with his writing, whether it was Vietnam, obviously substance abuse runs through his writing, even domestic abuse, like The Shining back in the 1976, 77, whenever that came out, very much domestic abuse being part of that. So to me, it's not like it's a complete about face. I just think in the past, and maybe it's the way people are interpreting things in fiction and media nowadays. It seems to be the battle cry that, oh, you're stuffing wokeness in our face, or you're doing it to sort of
to preach,
or what? I can't think of the term that
we got to push the
virtue signal. Yeah. So I don't know if he's getting heavier handed or maybe less skilled at weaving it in, but it does feel like the last several years he's kicked it up a notch. He also is very active on Twitter and very vocal on Twitter about certain views and politicians that he will name, parties that he will name. So he's not shy about kind of his personal views, and maybe that's making me interpret his fiction a little bit differently. Like, oh, I can see this in this writing because I know personal views, whereas maybe in the 70s, 80s, there wasn't social media to be that mouthpiece.
Yeah, it's like anytime I'm on Twitter and because I have him as a notification, it's like Stephen King, and anytime I see a pop up of Stephen King, I'm always like, oh, a book, a movie, oh, let's go see it. And then you're like, and it's just him saying, I hate this person. And I'm like, all right, Stephen.
Which, don't get me wrong, I'm all for the drama.
I'm like, you hate him. I was like, all right, he sucks.
Somebody needs to do a pie chart of his tweets. It's like 20% Molly Thing of Evil, 10% books, either his books or other authors, 70% politics.
Yes.
I want you to tell me more about this fairy tale book that's supposed to be coming out.
Oh, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I've been kind of going through a lot of his older books and like books that he has kind of said that like, oh, these are my favorite books that I've written, because I like my next one's I'm going to do Misery, and he did a thing where he said that was in his top 5. So I'm going to read that. But like when this fairy tale book comes out, I'm like, fantasy, back to fantasy. I was like, I'm going to check it out like as soon as it comes out.
Jonathan's comment.
I missed Jonathan's go. What did he say?
He said, Ursi likes to teach. Don't mind me.
Jonathan is on it today. He was killing it on Steve's earlier.
Yeah, I'll interject some drama here and there. I don't mind. You know what it is? It's like if you're, I totally respect people and like their political beliefs, and there's obviously, there's a lot going on in our country and all this other stuff, but, and it's okay to have differences of opinions, but in my own beliefs, is so long as you're not hurting others, right? And
Steve's in the house. Watch out now.
Hey. So it's always, I'm all for people saying what they believe, throw it in your books. I'm all for it. Like, I think King is brilliant in terms of like talking about those, like you said, like he's always had that in there. Like, I can see him talking about like the alcoholism and addiction and stuff, and how it affects him as a person and stuff. And that's something new for me to read about, and it's interesting, and I'm learning a new perspective. And I think it's dope.
I think the domestic violence thing has always been there, because that was a big thing through Cujo too. It's like, but I don't like Jeff said, I mean, maybe it's a little bit of recency bias, like where we can know what's going on now, or it could be he doesn't weave it as well as he used to, because like with Cujo, you had a whole bunch of different stories going on at the same time, and one of the stories that was a big component of it, was like infidelity / that, and then it all crashed together, and I think a lot of books, and I don't know, I might do a video on this, but we can talk about it. Like I'm not the biggest person when it comes, and I know this is a very popular thing now, is like themes. Like I want to know what the themes in the book are, and I'm like, I just want to have fun. Like I don't want to have to think. I think too much at work. I want to, I want to come home, or if I'm at work with my earbuds in, I just want to zen out, throw me into the world, and I just want to imagine being somewhere else. That's why I love The Dark Tower, because the way he just weaves this crazy world, you can't help but visualize it, because you're trying to grasp what's going on here. you know, and
so much going on.
That was my favorite thing about the Dark Tower. It's just like he does so well about like even it's weird. Like even if he's not describing what it looks like, the way he describes what the people are doing makes you think about what the area looks like and what's going on with the dancing and and they're going in and out of this jail cell, and you can just picture the jail cell and the people down in the salt mines. And what was your favorite part of this story? Like I just for me, I actually liked the mystery of it. That was my the whodunit type deal.
I think for me it was definitely the tiger. And like the mystery with the tiger, I thought that was really cool. And what happened, can we talk about it? Well,
if you're here watching a video about Wind Through the Keyhole,
they're far enough.
Yeah.
Spoilers from here on out.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Spoilers are coming.
So yeah, just like seeing at the tiger, what was Merlin, right? And
yeah,
I thought that was really cool. Yeah. I really liked that part. That was one of the parts that like had me really paying attention. Like, because for a lot of it, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of like, I had to keep rewinding it, like, because I listened to the audiobook for this one, and I wasn't that much of a fan of King narrating this one. I don't know if it's because I was so used to all the other books and
really good
narrated. Yeah, and then he started narrating, and I was like, like it took me a while to like get used to it, and then like I finally did. I still wasn't like a fan, but yeah, the tiger was dope. I really liked the tiger, and like the way that he was like, he's gonna open the door and the tiger's looking at him. Like, it was like so tense, like what's gonna happen. I was really hooked on that part. And then at the end when he helps his mom, and then she has the axe and like gets him. But not everyone can narrate their books like Jeff can. But yeah, it was just like that. I feel like that part was really good. I wasn't too hooked on like the fairy. Like, I don't know, maybe you guys can change my mind, but but I was just like, the tiger was like my favorite.
I think my favorite portion of the book. Sorry, go ahead, Joseph.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I think my favorite portion of the book was the Roland, Jamie DeCurry, Skinwalker part. And you're right, it was really well played out. They had to figure out who did it and how they were going to narrow down the suspects, and kind of Jamie being a good addition to the young gunslingers that we've met previously. And he had a good kind of detective's mind of tracking and putting clues together that even Roland was missing. I like that part of it, and that the resolution wasn't just sort of how many bullets can Roland shoot and how fast are his hands.
Yeah.
That Roland also had to use not only Court's teachings, but more Van A's teachings on how to kill this beast. A lot of what we've seen in the past is what Court taught the young gunslingers, which is how to kill. And Van A always was the tutor of knowledge and book learning type stuff, and it was actually Van A's teachings which kind of led to the ultimate resolution with the silver bullet and all of that. So I liked that layer of the story the best. And I did like the fairy tale Tim Stouthart part, except this is the weird like internet canon nerd in me, but there were things mentioned in the Tim portion which were from a story that was written before Roland was a baby, because assuming that Roland is telling the story exactly as his mother told it. Mm-hmm. But there were things like they mentioned, I think Merlin talks about the Red King being locked outside the tower. Mm-hmm. And there were hints, and Martin Broadcloak being the tax man. That's fine. I'm cool with the Man in Black being the tax man because he's somewhat ageless. But the chronology doesn't work with if the Red King is locked outside the tower, by the time it can be written into a story that Roland has heard when he's a youth, because in Dark Tower 7, he left that town and went mad and killed himself with the spoon just prior to Roland and his cut, and Roland and Susanna, I guess, coming through. So time, I don't know, maybe I'm just nitpicking it to death now, but part of it, like, you're bringing in too many elements that shouldn't have been known to Roland as a child, or whoever wrote this story for Gabrielle to read to Roland as a child.
Yeah, I don't know, like, as far as like when he was going through the swamp and everything, at first I wasn't sure I was on board with it, but then as he kept going, I'm invested in this part of the story, like with the feral people and the muties. Like at first they were like just watching him laughing, and then he off. And then he's like their leader. He's like, the claw, like, we'll do it. He's like, get me the hell out of here. And they're
that
like,
was funny.
Okay, here's a boat.
We'll help you out here. I remember. Yeah.
One thing I will say that I did like about this in terms of the style, I think King is at his peak when he is writing about this world. If you think about it, this is now his 8th book of writing about Midworld and gunslingers and Gilead, and so he's got all of this behind him. Plus, I think Robin Firth is like his main researcher, who helps him with all the details. So I think this was, to me, a real masterstroke of the way King writes about this world, and whether you know it because you're reading this as the 5th book, the 8th book, or even if it's the 1st book, if you read in his foreword, he kind of is writing it so you could pick it up even if you hadn't read any other Dark Tower books. I think it's really masterful because he's using some language and he comes up with his own words, but they're words that are close enough to our words that we get the meaning. And it's a good exercise in world building, especially for a fantasy type setting. That is done really well. I think he subtly weaves it in. Some people world build, either they take way too long to world build before they start the story, or they hit you over the head with their cleverness that they, this thing that they built into their world. And I thought that King, anybody who wants to study world building should read this book. This is how you do it. This is how you build a world, build a vocabulary, build a people. And actually two time levels, actually 3 time levels.
3, there was 3. 3 different settings, 3 different time periods, right?
Yeah.
3.
I thought he did a really good job with that.
That's crazy. Like, thinking about it that way too, like I wouldn't have thought about it in terms of like, because I know you guys would approach it differently as like writers and stuff. So the way that you're able to like point that out, now it's making me think like, okay, yeah, that actually was pretty good. Yeah.
So Brandy's mentioning the Little Sisters of Eloria, which I want to go back because this made me think of, I need to reread that story again.
Yeah, I haven't read that one.
It's kind of a Roland prequel, but it happens just before the Dark Tower. And it's a novella in one of his collections. And I got to go back and research when he wrote that, because I don't know if he wrote it towards the end of writing the Gunslinger cycle, somewhere in the middle. It feels like it's more in the middle. So I wonder how that, apparently Brandy says that compares favorably in the fact that, you already know this world, and he jumped right into it.
Hey,
Joanna. Hey.
Yeah. I was kind of like more with Ursi when it comes to like this story. I actually would have preferred probably reading it in the order. Kind of coming back to it, it just kind of felt like a side, just kind of a side story when I don't know, when I ended the series, it was kind of like she said, it's like, it's like, whoa, one of the craziest stories, finished up. And when you come back, you're expecting just as crazy when he's kind of giving you.
It's just like, I'm chill right now.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just going to give you a nice story that's inside the world to read.
Yeah.
And, and you're like, but I want epic. I want the epicness.
I feel like, but then again, like if you think about it, like in terms of the series in total, right? Obviously, like the Dark Tower, like that is the culmination of everything we've been going through, right? Mordred with the pregnancy, right? The mom and Callahan and what happens with everybody. Oh, it's just like the culmination, everything that we've been waiting for, we got it there, right? Like it took 7 books, right, to get there. And I think maybe if I had like more time in between, like how you said, like you had that time in between. Like I'm not mad. Whatever. I'm not, it's whatever. But I think if after, Wizard and Glass books 5, I said a little bit, Joanna.
We probably said a little bit, but nothing. I'm so glad, Joanna, that you just posted that, because I was going to say something that would have just ruined the whole thing for you.
Yeah.
So I'll hold off on like any of the big spoilers for a little while.
Okay.
That's a great point, though, because because the 3 of us have read it, and other people that were taking this journey decided to read it in publication order, but I forgot that not all of our watchers might be taking that same journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But either way, like just thinking about the story in general, like for the book that we're talking about right now, Wind Through the Keyhole, right? Either way, like I still feel like I really did enjoy going back to those characters and like seeing like what they were up to, even though if it was really subtle, like nothing happened too much with them, right? Like they're just trying to escape a storm, right?
Yeah.
But I did like the connection with Oi and like seeing the Billy Bumblers and like the lore with them,
why they were
like,
special.
Yeah, like I thought that was because I loved Oi and I'm telling you, with Dark, I was a mess. I was a mess throughout that book, but Oi especially because is an animal, But seeing like the lore with the Billy Bumblers, like like we kind of knew that they were like important and how they benefited people, and they're able to kind of see like the way that they kind of point towards the Stark blast because they know something's coming. Like I love that, and like the way that he's like, this is how it reminded me of this story. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, like a lot of people have been doing like these and I'll probably have one up here in the next week, like your favorite like character type, different character types or whatever. And like whenever they get to like animal companion, I'm like, if Oi is not your number 1, there's something wrong with you, unless you haven't read the Dark Tower. And if you read the Dark Tower, Oi is number 1.
Yeah. Oi, I think he's so good. He's a good boy. And like I think about it with like my dog, like he'll like anytime because my dog he's not golden eyes, but like amber eyes. And it's just funny because he's like, if you ever see a picture of my dog, like he's got like these really round eyes. And like, whenever he's looking at me, like he can really do like those puppy eyes, but he's also got like expressive eyebrows. So then, so now that I see him every time, like his eyes, like amber eyes in the sun, I'm like, oh boy. It's so ridiculous.
I wonder how many Stephen King fans have pets named Oi.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I was like, probably like after Wizard and Glass, I bet the name Oi just skyrocketed with pets.
But I think it's also the way but you gotta say it, Oi.
And if this ever does get made into a movie or TV series, then it'll become like pet name of the year.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
I've
Yes.
heard they're trying to do a series, like an actual TV series.
Yeah, they've been trying that forever. And I think we did
really
say
hard
how
to
we
do.
would hate watch the Dark Tower or the Gunslinger movie.
I didn't do that.
But yeah, Amazon, they actually filmed a pilot. And I think it was I might be getting this wrong. I think it was Glenn Mazzara who was the showrunner of the first few seasons of The Walking Dead. So he'd filmed a pilot for Amazon. It's completed. You can see some screenshots of it online, although Amazon's pretty good at like locking that down. A few people have seen it, but it's not going to get released. Amazon pulled the plug, and I don't know. They said it'd be too expensive, or I don't know why they're chickening out on it. But apparently, the few people who've seen it said it would have been a great series, and the way chronologically he was going to do it, because the question is, do you start with the Gunslinger, or do you start with Wizard and Glass, or do you where do you start? And I think he was kind of starting, I could have this wrong, I think it was like almost like a chronologically of Roland's life. So the stuff when he's a boy and he goes to get his face off with Court and the David the Hawk thing into
that would have been really cool to see.
Yeah, and then going out into the Magus stuff, and then kind of going along from there. That I think that's one way to do it. But apparently that's just shelved for now.
They are too scared. It can be done, but they need to take their. I feel like it's one of those, like, you need to take your time with it. You know what I mean? Like, you definitely need to take your time, and because I know who's doing the Avatar live action, right? And they are pouring money into that one. They are pouring
Netflix,
so much.
isn't it?
I think it's Netflix, yeah. And it's like an unlimited budget. They're like, just get it right. Like, and I am all for it. But again, it's given that if you give it that room for that creativity to like actually not be limited, by like budgetary reasons or whatever, like it can be done. And I think the Dark Tower has enough of a fan base to actually make that successful if they do it the right way. Like how much money was poured into Game of Thrones,
Right.
Like 30 million an episode or something crazy like that.
I thought, and it was really great. Obviously the final season had its flaws, but either way, it was highly successful, because they like for the majority of it, they like took great care to like do it right, and I think they, if they do this with the Dark Tower, they can do it.
I hadn't started reading the Dark Tower until like the movie had came out. I've never seen the movie, but the movie came out. And my friend was like, yeah, don't even bother with that. Just go ahead and get into the books. And now that I'm through the books, I'm like, there's no way you can make this into a movie.
Just one movie?
And it was like an 87-minute movie, too. It wasn't even like a long movie.
Yeah. It's like there's so much
no way.
I still go on record that I think the guys that wrote the screenplay certainly didn't read the entire series. I think they read the summary on Wikipedia. And that was what they based the screenplay on.
That's crazy to me.
So Steve, was Steve saying that the budget for Lord of the Rings series is high?
They paid $1 billion for the rights and then to film it.
Wow.
It was something like that. It was,
That's probably what sucked all the oxygen out of it, because Amazon's doing Wheel of Time and Lord of the Rings, and they probably just didn't have any money left over for Dark Tower, and they probably thought those two things might be bigger marquee names than, although I don't think I know Wheel of Time has a loyal fan base, but over Dark Tower or just Stephen King as a brand.
Yeah, like Stephen King in general, I feel like the majority of his movies are like the movies that they make, and like, didn't they just make that new series with like The Stand too, right? Like I haven't watched it. I just know
that was that Apple or was that Prime?
was one of the ones I didn't get.
Yeah, I don't have Apple, so it might be Apple.
Or Paramount? Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the original Lord of the Rings movies cost because I used to be a big nerd about budgets and how much stuff needs to be. I was on Box Office Mojo before it got bought out by IMDb. Now you have to pay for everything, and it was like $200 million to make all 3 movies, and they made them all at once. They believed in it, so they're like, "We'll put $200 million in. You can make all 3 movies," and now it's like $1 billion. But there's so many adaptations coming out right now. And people with loyal fan bases like the Dark Tower and stuff, and then myself with the Dresden Files, like we're all like, when's our turn? Like,
yeah.
And I for Dresden Files at least, because he had a deal with Fox before it got bought out, and he said he's in the writing process because the first thing that they did sucked. So with sci-fi, but he said he didn't have any control over that. But he's like, so I'm like, Hulu, come on now, you need something. let's throw the Dark Tower and Dresden Files on Hulu. Let's go.
Yeah, that was
Hulu. Great.
I use my brother's password for Hulu.
But I think you're right, Rick. I think there's so many formats now and so many different. Steve's throwing shade at Apple TV.
You're not getting sponsored by Apple now, Steve.
Yeah, right.
Wrong. Thank you, Bailey. Books and sport. But I think with all the streaming, all the different outlets, you don't have to. It doesn't have to be a 42-minute, hourly, 21 episode a year. We've broken all the format rules. So if it takes 8 episodes to tell a story, and one episode is 37 minutes and another episode is 58 minutes, fine. Like we're there. You just tell the story you need to tell, put the story, the characters, and the quality first, and you can get it done. But I think there's the issue with Hollywood is, and you hit on this a little bit, Joseph. One, it has to be recognizable. It has to be, Hollywood and whoever's putting these things out. It's very rare that they'll take a property that no one's heard of and launch that. Something like Stranger Things is the
exception.
Oh, Nitty Freeze.
Oh
no. You froze.
Just you left us on a cliffhanger.
I know. It's like, man. You froze.
Am I back?
Oh, there you are.
Okay, good. I'd say something like Stranger Things is the exception rather than the rule.
There you go.
But but that was also kind of like they hit. I think they hit the zeitgeist of the '80s nostalgia peak of that bubble too. But rebooting The Stand for a third time, sure, Hollywood would be all over that. Another sci-fi show that we can just put the Star Trek label on, fine, we're good there. Like I think they're so into the bankable, IPs.
We'll slap Halo on it, but not really tell you the real Halo story.
Yeah. So in that sense, something like the Dark Tower should be a layup for Hollywood folks. Now, Joseph and I getting our stuff made into movies and shows, now that would be an uphill battle because, we're not the brand names that Stephen King is.
Yeah, I'm only up to like 30,000 emails, so we'll see if I'll get through.
So
you can have it all cheap. Just make the first season, then you can pay me for the second.
There you go.
Yeah. and I've gone on record saying this all the time. You don't have to modify. Just don't for screenplay adapters. Don't feel like you have to be smarter than the material. That you have to add something to it. Just take the words from the book, make it fit into the visual screenplay adaptation format, but don't feel like you have to twist it up and change it so much.
Yeah.
Well, and me and AP kind of went back and forth a little bit on this from Critical Dragon, and he's defended some like adaptations, and my view on adaptations is, I think you have to be 70 to 75% accurate to everything that happens. you can take that 30% and fluff it up for general audiences, but there's a reason that these things are so popular.
Right.
Don't think you're better than the author who made it popular.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
If it's so bad, then why are you adapting it to begin with? If it's,
yeah. Because I definitely am of the opinion of like, you can make some changes, right? Because obviously it's a different format, right? But not so much that you lose your audience to that, you know, this is so different from blah, 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 you know, the gatekeepers, right? And because I think that's sort of, because I didn't watch The Wheel of Time or anything, but people were like upset because it was like so different according to them. But like me not having watched it, like or read the book, I would, you know, if I were to approach either, I don't think I'd be so like what's the problem, you know, because I wouldn't know. But you know, you have to change some things to kind of, you know, even like think about Harry Potter, right? The movies are incredible. The books are great. But obviously the movies couldn't grab everything from the books because they're chunky books, you know? And some people even gave that criticism like, oh, well, they forgot this part. They forgot that part. How long you want these movies to be?
Well, and that's one thing
hard, you know?
One thing I did say about, or I try to ask some people, because I don't have a lot of big readers around me. I don't know if either of you have read The Hobbit.
Not yet.
But I'm just like, I wonder if they got everything for that one book in 3 movies. I'm like, is it exactly the book with that much? Because like you said, with like Harry Potter, they're like, what are they, 400? Some of them are 500 page books.
The last book is like 700, 800
I'm sure
pages. I mean, they made
movies, but the last ones are the biggest. But you can't fit all that into an hour and a half or 2 hours. And, you know, you're going to have to change, you know, some stuff. But you got to be true to the material, and all the major things have to stay the same.
Yeah.
You know,
because I think that's sort of what the criticism is with the Dark Tower movie. Again, I haven't seen it, but you know, there's characters missing from the quartet. You know, there's, you know, it's just a lot of different things. But you know, either way, like I want to see it, but I'm like, I know, having read the series, I'm like, there's just no way.
I think I won't say, I won't give you too much of my analysis of the Dark Tower movie, but I think we should hate watch it as a group. Actually, let's say so. We should watch it as a group. I think if people should go in with a blank slate. I think there is something to kind of what Joseph's saying, like going in and you know, viewing it as its own thing too. Like it's you can know that these are 2 different forms of art that are derived from the same thing, and accept that they're going to be different. Like you were saying, the Harry Potter books versus movies, you just can't condense that down. So accept it as its own thing. I'm going to watch a Harry Potter movie if I can read the book, and they have the nugget, they have the base that's the same. But I think where people get off is major events or major things that were key to the book getting removed or changed for the movie.
Yeah, my best friend tries to, the one thing he does to explain it, although he hated the movie too, he was like, he goes, if you think about it, it's actually a sequel because he had the horn in the movie. So I'm like, you know, I think that maybe we should do that. Maybe we should try to set something up for you know, a month or 2.
Yeah, Stacey said it.
And do a watch party, and then we'll jump back on here, and then we'll say how much we hated it.
I'll try to drag my husband into it. He's been reading all the books along with us.
Nice.
He's just always scared to get on camera, but I'll probably drag him on here so he can say a couple things.
Well, it's like I think it was like 2 or 3 days ago. I did a video about like why I'm not reading The Wheel of Time, and I was actually afraid to hit publish because I'm like, I remember when I first started watching BookTube about 2.5 years ago. If you wanted to blow up your channel, it was do stuff on The Wheel of Time and do stuff on Malazan. And that's how you can build your channel super fast. And I'm like, man, they're going to come down on me so hard.
They're going to get you.
But I haven't read the books yet. But like I watched the whole first season, and it just felt really generic to me. And that's the one thing I was asking people. I'm like, does it do it justice? Like I know it, like this whole adaptation thing right now. And I just felt it was like a really generic first season. I mean, the last couple episodes were, better than the first, but
I don't know. I gotta watch it.
To me, it came across as Game of Thrones light, or diet Game of Thrones. But I think the books are that way too. Like I shouldn't.
Yeah, I heard they're not.
This is where all the hate mail comes in.
Dark, from what I hear.
I read the first Wheel of Time book, and I think for both the book and the Amazon series, both of them just didn't engage me. They didn't hook me. Whereas like the Game of Thrones series, and then when I went back and read the books, like they hooked you. Like they drew you in. And there's some things I just kind of, they're just very surface. I'll read them or I'll watch them, and it'll kind of go in my brain and out the other side. And other things, I'll and I think about it in between episodes, and I can't wait till the next season drops. And that was Game of Thrones versus.
Yeah, Game of Thrones was a phenomenon. I was having watch parties and everything. And like I was one of the few of my friends that had like read the books. And so anytime like we would watch the show, they'd be like, wait, pause it. And they'd ask me, what did they say in the book about this? I'm like, well, let me tell you what they said about this. And it was like a whole thing, But with I feel like there's not much aside from maybe like Stranger Things and that have really been like this really successful phenomenon where everyone's like wild about it.
That's what my wife was doing to me when we were watching Halo. She'd be like, is he really? Is that person in the games? Is that like no?
Yeah.
Is that what they look like? I'm like yeah, no, yeah, or like The Witcher. She watched. She's all the way through to the Lady of the Lake. She has this problem with finishing stuff. She's
I'm the same way.
She's on the last episode of Smallville, 10 seasons, and she won't watch the last episode.
I haven't watched the last season of Smallville.
And I'm like, come on. And she's like, well, maybe I'll rewatch it. You're going to rewatch 200 episodes if you haven't watched the last one.
That's me right now.
With, you won't watch it.
That's me right now with Law and Order Special Victims Unit. You know how they have like the new seasons with Elliot with he's got like organized crime or something. I'm like, oh, like the character for Stabler. I'm like, oh, I gotta watch that one, but now I gotta rewatch all of SVU to get to it first. And my husband's like, that's 12 years. I'm like, I'm gonna watch it. I'm in season 6.
I will say,
it makes no sense.
to
Oh no, he froze again.
At least it froze on a good picture.
Yes. But yeah, my husband, he makes fun of me all the time. He's like, "There's."
Did I freeze again?
Oh, yeah.
He's back.
I'm back. I was gonna say, when you guys were talking about really good, like Stranger Things level TV shows, I would say, Steve, I know you don't like Apple TV, but For All Mankind on Apple TV is solid, especially if anybody likes the space race or space, NASA type stuff. Cool premise to that one. It starts off with you think you're watching the moon landing, like the original moon landing, and it kind of finds it's the Russians landing on the just fake for you, Stacy. But it's the Russians landing on the moon first, and then it's kind of an alternate history.
Ooh, I like that.
So that's a good show.
Yeah, the best new show is kind of like a sci-fi horror show, and it's actually not on a major network. It's on like Epix, and it's called From. Oh my god!
I haven't heard of that one.
That it has the main character from that the show Oz back in the day, the prison show. I don't know if you remember, but he's kind of he keeps getting into so many shows, but like these people they drive in to this wooded area. They're supposed to be going cross country, and then when they get there, it's almost Stephen King like. They get there, and then they're like, oh, we run into this town, and they're like, oh, we must have turned the wrong way. Drive through the town, and it's basically just they loop right back into the town, and they can't get out of it. and it happens to everybody who's in the town. That's the way they got there from all over the United States.
That's so creepy.
That's
and
cool.
There's these creatures that come out at night, and just if you are not inside of a structure and you have to have like this little weird medallion, they kill you. Like they're like, we don't know if they're vampires or they're fairies. It's very Stephen King. And I'm just like, this is the best. Like they just probably another 5 months for season 2, but
you're all toe dashing.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Yeah, you like that one.
And if you just tuned in, we're talking about the Wind Through the Keyhole.
I'm sorry, I get off on tangents, and then
Stephen King does it all the time.
You're looking up the Dark Tower, and you keep clicking links, and then you end up on Honda mowers somehow, and you don't know how you got there.
I mean, we're talking about Stephen King. We might as well, right? It's tangents.
And I did see Stacy brought up the that new series by the creators of Dark. I think I shot Steve the teaser trailer for that when it first came out and said, "Hey, creators of Dark, I'm in. You just say no more. I'm there."
Dark. I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, I gotta look that one up.
Oh, Dark is so. If Steve were on right now, he would be smiling ear to ear because he finds some way to bring it into every conversation. But,
nice.
It's a German show. It's on Netflix. You can watch it with. He's all in. Today I'm playing the part of Steve. It's a German show, so you can watch. It's on Netflix. You can watch it either dubbed or with subtitles. And it is. I won't say much about it other than it's deep time travel. Ooh. That you have to you literally sit on the edge of your seat and you watch every second of this thing and you try to figure it out and your brain has to go into overdrive. And by the end, it's like 3 seasons, I think, and it's well worth it.
All right, Steve, you watch From, and then I'm gonna watch Dark, and then because it's got the time travel stuff in there too. I love, me and my wife love that kind of stuff.
Wait, so to bring it back to the Dark Tower, because I know I didn't get to really, it'll relate, right? So. Because I didn't get to talk about it last time because I was late.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I think Joanna's gone, so we can just start talking about, because you guys didn't get to talk about the ending and how you felt about it. So we'll get into that.
My heart broke so bad for him. Just thinking about having to do that loop, here we go with time travel, right? To just keep looping back and doing it all over again. And okay, so here's the thing with me, right? Anytime that you see any story that has to do with memory loss, amnesia, kind of Alzheimer's, right? Those really affect me. Reading, just hearing people losing grips of reality and seeing that happen to him, you build this bond with him and you see him grow so much, right? You see the attachment, and I guess that kind of goes back to Wind Through the Keyhole, where you're just seeing them together and it's all love, right? Back. And to see him just lose all of that, it was so heartbreaking. It was, and he's just on the mission again to go start it all over. But is it that every time it's different, right? He's just got a little something different.
So that's the whole thing with the horn. Now that he's got the horn, we can assume that some things will be different, and maybe him picking up the horn symbolizes that he's willing to take. He's less of a machine, more sentimental. Maybe he's learned, so each iteration is something different. Mm-hmm. I did and I think you guys were talking about this. I came onto the stream at the end last time about, what does that mean? Will it be all different again, or, will we meet different people, or, and I kind of liked it when I came to the end of it. The first time my thought was, well, this just means I thought it was very meta. King knows his readers, and he knows that many people will go back and start reading book one again. And that's just the way we are as constant readers. And so it was kind of a meta way of saying, you can start his journey again too. Like, or every time you pick up book one again, you're damning him to start his journey.
That's a good way to think about it. I've never thought about it like that. That's good. That's a good
that kills me. In a good way, though.
For reading book one again.
Oh, no.
I was just about to reread The Gunslinger, and then you have to throw that on me.
Wouldn't it be weird though if you picked it up one of these times and he reaches down, he has a fingers and he touches the horn, and you're like, oh.
That'd be so weird.
But the other thing too, I was like, if you notice throughout the book, see Brandy damned him to another cycle.
Did it again. Did it to him.
Well, but throughout the books too, there are a couple places where either the rose is singing, or there are places where people feel like there are faces and voices around them. And I always kind of thought, I don't remember where I came up with this thought, but one of my rereads, that that's us. Like, that's the readers kind of breaking through and watching these things happen. So it's another kind of meta thing.
Well, Stacy came up with an idea, and she's like, okay, would you, if King re-released all the books and they were just slightly different, like he had the horn at the beginning, would you reread them all? If they were just, and I'm like, yeah, I would have to. if he was like 95% is the same, but there is some differences in there, would you? I'm like, I have to like, and I'd be like on the internet with people like, all right, what are the differences? Like, I see this. What do you see?
I think that would be fun for him to do, even if they were like completely different, and he had a whole different cycle. But, and I'm going to give credit to the, I think it was Kingslinger's podcast. They were saying, what if the cycle that we're reading is his 19th cycle, his 19th time through, which is why 19 is the number.
So
if he did it again, if he did another cycle, then the magic number would have to be 20.
Yeah.
That's a good way to see, because sometimes with the number 19, like, it was just kind of thrown in there and it didn't really make sense. That makes sense if you think about it that way. So now the next one is going to be, every single thing is going to be 20, and then 20 letters to the name, 20 whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
room 20. Of course it was going to be room 20.
Right.
I like that. That's a good way to think about it, because you know what? I really could not think of like an explanation for the number 19.
Other than he was hit on June 19th, 1999.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't think of, other than that, like his personal connection to it. But he also, like, him putting himself in a story too, there's that. And like how he kept saying, like, he's the creator, but he's affected by it. Like, they're all interconnected, right? And, at first, when I first saw him put himself in the story, I had this like, really, dude? Like, okay, King. Like,
you know what this book needs? It needs some me in it.
Yeah.
You know what? Once my books take off and it's like Marvel, I'm gonna be the Stan Lee. I'm just gonna be like randomly drinking coffee on the corner in every show or every movie.
I like the game is to find them. But yeah, with Stan Lee, oh man, rest in peace. But yeah, that was always like fun to see. Like, I think that was always one of the things with like the Marvel movies, right? Like, you see the Stan Lee part. I know every time me and my husband be like, yeah, like Derry, yeah, like you get really excited. But then like with the King in his story, right? Like it's more of like he had to kind of make these explanations as to why, some of the things that didn't really make sense are, he's making those connections to make them make sense. Like where where Eddie came from, right? Or where you know, I don't know how to explain it, but like it was necessary. But I can also see it like from first glance, and you're really putting yourself in the story. You think that highly of yourself, you know, and you have to be real bold to be like, yeah, I did put myself in that story. What are you going to do about it? You're going to like it. You're going to sit there, you're going to read it, and you're going to like it. Right? I'm like, yeah, I actually did.
I love that part of it. It was so new and refreshing at the time that I was like, this is really smart. And then it started making me question, you know, what part, you know, was Eddie a real living person in Brooklyn that, you know, or wherever he was supposed to be from, you know, like what parts of this was Stephen King channeling, and then just all the stuff with his accident, like being a real event. And then it was, you know, it was very, I love the meta aspect of it, but the fact that he didn't, where Roland doesn't like Stephen King.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Himself as like a virtuous, perfect person. He's pretty scathing.
He calls himself out.
Yeah.
Now, which part hurt you the worst? Was it for me? It had to be Jake when
oh my god
he took the brunt of the force and everything, and you're like, no.
That whole thing with Jake took me like 3 days to read, because I would read like a paragraph and I'd be in the parking lot of my job, like, you know, like I was telling Joseph earlier, like I work in tech, and you know, I get long breaks, right? And so I, you know, I'll go sit in my car and I'll read, or I'll like in the cafeteria, and I could not, like, I was bawling my eyes out. I'd read like a paragraph and I was like bawling my eyes out, because not so much the death. I think it's always the reaction to it and how he's like affected by it. Because again, like I said, like with him going back and like losing those connections, like he had grown to love him as a son, and to see that, and especially given the fact that he lost a child with Susan, right? Like burned at the stake. Like he lost that opportunity to have a child, and then to actually be sort of have this redemption moment with Jake, you know, from the gunslinger to the Dark Tower, right? Having that relationship built with him, and he's like, that's the boy, that's my son, that's like even calling him like my son, and then to lose him, oh my god, it killed me. It took me so long to read through it, because I was
they built, like at the beginning it was like Roland's like, I don't care about anything, I don't care about anyone, I gotta get to the Dark Tower. The only reason you're here is because you're a tool for me to get to the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
And then, especially in the last book, or the last two books, is like everybody was built up. Even Eddie was like, you know, when he was getting in the car, like when Roland was still out of the car and Eddie got in the car, he was like, okay, Dad. You know, and he's like, everyone started accepting, like Roland started accepting them as his children, and they started seeing him as like their father figure.
One by one.
Then he's like, killing them. I'm like, and then you're like, oh yeah, just hurt Roland as hard as you can, Steve.
Oh my gosh, I was so heartbroken.
I think I'm with Brandy that Eddie was the one that hurt me the most, for the same reason you were just talking about, Ursi. It's the reaction. It's everybody else's reaction to his death.
Yeah.
Susanna, her reaction is heartbreaking. You know, having to, and he didn't even. First of all, it was all really foreshadowed. Like they were very clear, and all of them knew it. Their tech was going to be broken. And then you kind of forget about that because they're doing well in the fight, and the fight's going well, and they're, and then all of a sudden, for a dumb reason, Eddie gets shot, but then he doesn't die. It's not like a quick, like, oh, our hero is gone. It was this lingering death, and Susanna had to mourn that, and Jake had to see it, and so that one hurt the most. And then it was just dominoes from that point. Like Brandy's right. Like once Eddie was, kind of broke through, our tent's broken, and it's like they were just dominoes at that point. And then it kind of, for me, capped off again when Susanna chose to leave Roland, like, because Roland was heartbroken about that. And this guy who'd been so unfeeling and so uncaring, like, he was the one that was almost like, don't go.
Yeah.
So that was a tough one.
Yeah, because I know with like Oi, like it was still sad. And don't get me wrong, I was crying. I was a mess with Oi too, right? But with Oi, I felt like his was like badass. Like he was in the fight, he was giving it all, and like you knew it was gonna happen. Like the second he chose to stay, you knew something was gonna happen to him because he had the chance to live with Susanna. But you knew. Right. And it was still badass. Like I wasn't like, again, I knew it was coming, but then like how he's like reacting to him and he's like asking for forgiveness and like, oh, it was so emotional. But like the same thing with Eddie, right? Like you see Susanna like caring for his body and cleaning him and everything. And it was just so hard. I'm going to cry.
Well, and Eddie had, to me, the reason it hit so hard, for Eddie, it was like he had the most development of all of these characters.
He grew so much.
To me, Jake didn't really change all that much. He got harder, but he didn't really change all that much. Eddie, by the end, he was like almost a whole new person, except for he still had his snarkiness, and the best part of him originally, and, so when that, and again, his death wasn't immediate. It dragged out. And that was the hard part.
That was so hard. And like she's singing to him and all that. Oh my God, that was rough.
Yeah.
That was rough. But I think Eddie was really hard. Like even with Pear Callahan, like he like sacrificed himself so like Jake can keep going. Like it was really sad, but you kind of knew like something was gonna happen, right? You kind of knew like something was gonna happen. With Eddie and Jake, that was Jake, you kind of also knew.
Yeah, but Callahan, I didn't feel like this would be kind of weird saying it this way, but like I liked it. Like not that he died, that wasn't, but like you felt like he went out like he went down swinging, and so it was kind of the hero.
Him and Oi,
and Father Callahan got to like redeem himself from his original mistake in Salem's Lot. So he kind of stood that on his head and said, I don't need this talisman. It's the power that's inside me and this faith in God. Like that was a good way for Callahan to go out.
And I guess to go off on a lighter note, so how bad did you all hate the boss fights? Like how terrible were they?
So I was talking about it with my husband a little bit, right? And Stephen King kind of says it in like his other, I think he said it in, I think it was Wizard and Glass or in Wolves of the Kala, where he's like, you got all this action, you got all this tension, all this buildup for 5 minutes of action, right? And like he kind of stuck to that, right? And especially with like Mordred and Walter.
The man in black,
right?
I'm just like your guy. That's the guy. Like outside of the Red King, that's the guy. And that's how you're doing it. Like I know King kind of like interjects into this, and I think it was Wizard and Glass. He kind of alludes to it. He slips it in there where he's like, "Oh, you're all about 5 minutes of fun to the end, and then it's over." And you're like, what? You've had this person forever, and like we want to see them go toe to toe, and you're just like, and then you just have him get eaten by a spider. Yeah, it was like
let the spider take care of him.
Yeah, and then you let this, and then like Jeff said, it's like, you know, at the beginning of this video, it's like when Mordred comes down, he's just like pop pop pop, you're dead, you fell into the fire. I'm like, yeah. Like the gunslinger was amazing. You had all kinds of awesome action in that. You can't give me one of those.
That's so funny.
And the big bad, they also have like a bigger bad to the bigger bad to the bigger bad. And the big bad, I don't feel like it was clever how they took care of him, because it's going to be just another epic gunfight. But I don't know if we knew enough of who the Crimson King was. Like we didn't really get enough. And then he was kind of played for a fool at the end with his
and
he just left his eyes.
Like, walked out on the balcony, like, oops, I forgot my spare key. Can someone let me in?
And you know what? Like, it was going cool at first. He's like, oh, he's throwing the snitches.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, Roland's dodging and hiding. All right, we're behind here. And then, you know, and then Roland's like, all right, we're stuck in a hard spot. And then it's like, and like, I don't know if King was just kind of like just wanted to get the story done. So he's just like, he like backed himself into a corner. He's like, all right, I put them in a really tough spot. And we'll just erase them. Let's get them. And I'm like, no, write me a cool way that they figured it out.
I liked it. I thought it was different. I don't know. I'm always a fan of different. Like it is funny though. I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty funny. And then it was like some crazy old man. Like, this is the Crimson King, and he needs to look like just like some senile old man, right? Like throwing, you know, I think of like the Green Witch, like throwing like the spider monkeys. Right? You'll never get me, dearie.
You, my pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that one was it was tough. It wasn't we've heard about the Crimson King and the Eye of the Crimson King and all this stuff all along, and then at the end he was just kind of foolish.
Yeah, but I did like I if anything, I want to know more about. See, I don't even remember his name. The guy that was like drawing, you know, like I kind of want to know more about that and like that power and like what's going on with that, you know. But
yeah, my friend like hates that character so bad. He's like, he's just like, he's not even a real character. You just put him in the last like the last 5% of the last book just so you could do that one thing.
Yeah,
you know?
So I want to know more about that, but
so his character starts in Insomnia. So if you want to know more,
is that him?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, now I'm like, okay, now I got to read Insomnia and find out like what's going on.
Or at least there's something to him. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I have a question for you guys though. So if Stephen King were to give us another Dark Tower book, I'm going to give you 4 options. Ready? So option A, another insert book. So between some of the volumes, like Wind in the Keyhole was 4.5, would you like another insert book? Would you like a Roland prequel? So another young Roland, similar to the Skinwalker adventure or the Magus adventure? Or would you like another cycle 20, we'll call it, or would you like one with the Tet Corporation gunslingers? It's like Moses Carver's daughter and the people he meets at the tower.
Do you want to? I have my answer.
All right.
Okay. So I'm going to rule out the other ones first. Okay. So I don't think another cycle would be my thing, right? Simply because I feel like the drama is in the hypotheticals of the ending, right? Like you have that, like, you know, it's just going to keep cycling. And it's just this never ending. And that's the drama of it all, right? So I don't think that would be an option for me. Stacey's like, give me all of it.
All of it. Stacey doesn't play by the rules. I'm not choosing one.
I think with Roland's story, I think like we kind of got 2 prequels, right? We got a little bit with Wind Through the Keyhole, but we got a really good like understanding of him in Wizard and Glass. So I think it would just wind up being like a competitor to Wizard and Glass, and I don't, I think it's already enough because we kind of see his torture with Susan and his mom in that. So I don't think we need that. I don't think we need another. I kind of hit on that, the insert, but I would like to know more about the tech corporation. I think that's where I would go, just because I think there was a lot of mystery to it. And if anything, that was sort of the thing I didn't grasp enough with. And there's, all the tech corporation and the mechanics and all the robots and all that stuff. I think that I want that. That's my answer. Sorry, I'm long-winded.
That is a good answer. I like the way you broke that down. That's good.
Well, for me, it would be 2 options. It would be either I do like the thought of the tech corporation, because what you could do with that is you could make that a sequel. Right? That could be because their timeline is at the end,
that's right.
Is at the end or beyond. So it could be like even if they didn't like really allude to it and like put it in your face that it's a sequel, it could be. They could just write it as a modern day thing, and this is what they're doing. And people who've read the whole thing will be like, oh, so this is what's going down now. Okay. Yeah. Because we know that Roland's coming back through the cycle, but they're already ahead of the cycle, whatever the 20th cycle or whatever. And maybe you could even write in like how they're helping him to make this the last cycle. Maybe, give them the important part, maybe, if you're going to make that another book, instead of being like, it's all on Roland, if he wrote a new book, he could be like, well, now it's kind of on them to bring Roland through to the end, I
like that.
But I would also, I like just at the beginning, it would be like if you just took out them in the middle and just had it as a prequel. I liked that was probably my favorite part outside of it not moving the plot too forward. I liked his backstory, in Wizard and Glass. So I like all that, but I probably would go with the Tet thing too, just because there's a chance that it could be like a sequel to it. I think that's why I would like that better.
Yeah, I like that, and it could be so meta too, because remember they have that whole department that all they do is study Stephen King books.
Yeah.
So you could have like all in jokes and all like.
Yeah. I'm with that. What a job, right? Can you imagine that as a job?
Wait a second. This just jumped into my head. This could be the show. It's like, I don't know. Jeff, you're probably about my age, so maybe you know this, but like there was a show called Friday the 13th, and you froze. Hopefully you can still hear me. But there was a show called Friday the 13th. It had nothing to do with Jason or anything.
Yes.
And all it was like at the beginning of the show, you would go into this vault and they would circle down and they'd go and you'd be like, it'd be looking at something like a film canister or something.
Creepy doll.
And the story would be about that. And it would be like, how is this thing supernatural or weird? Kind of like the whole Annabelle thing, like in, how they're like, oh, this story's about this doll. Well, it could be that. Like in the beginning, you could come in and they're all going through Stephen King, books. And then it was like, and then they all rush over. Do you see this? And then that's the episode.
Yeah.
I like that.
That'd be good.
And then it's like
you and I we gotta write this. We're gonna write about it. We're gonna get this going. Because you're right, it could be like anthology stories of different adventures
within
but wrapped
the Dark
in
Tower.
These modern day next gen gunslingers that are operating out of Hammersholt Plaza and
So Steven, I know you're watching this right now because this is huge.
Huge.
Make it happen. Make it so.
We'll make it happen,
really,
Joseph.
Yeah, we'll just start writing it and then be like, hey,
pilot. Write the pilot.
That would be awesome.
That sounds really cool. I like that. Like,
and Brandy, you said option 4. Was that option 4? Was option 4 the Tech Corporation one? I think that was what Brandy said. So I agree. I think I used to think I just wanted more Roland prequels, young Roland adventures.
Yeah.
But this last time reading through book 7, I was like, I want to know more about these people. And whether it's the modern day ones or the 3 founders, John Callum, Moses Carver, and I can't remember who else. Was it Calvin Tower? I know Calvin Tower was part of it. Or Deepno. It was Aaron Deepno.
Aaron.
Yeah. So it sounded like they had some adventures in the 70s and 80s too.
Yeah, because like they sound like kind of like good old boys. Like we had some good times back in the day.
Yeah,
chasing these people down, blowing up stuff.
That would be a really good one. I feel like some of like if it was like a serial, it'd be like some of the episodes would be like with the gangsters that what's his name Eddie was messing with before,
like Balazar and his
Balazar and his goons. Like that would be some of the episodes, right?
That would be awesome.
Another one is like somebody trying to bulldoze the rows.
Joseph, that was a good call on Friday the 13th, the series. That was I do remember that. That was, didn't they have to go, weren't they trying to find the artifacts in that vault, or like they were trying to retrieve the artifacts to the vault or something?
I'm not sure. I feel like it was just that it was already in there, and then the camera would go to it and would tell you why it's there.
The backstory.
I distinctly remember a werewolf episode of how the werewolf was like killed or stopped by the silver that's inside of the old film canisters, like the silver screen. They killed him, and then I don't know if a 4-year-old should have been watching that kind of stuff, but like I remember that stuff. Fondly. I think Sci-Fi came out with something similar to that. I didn't watch a lot of it. It was called like Warehouse 13 or something like that.
I remember the title. I didn't watch it.
Yeah. My friend said it was something similar to that, but I never watched it. But that would be excellent. I'm all about more Dark Tower, and especially if it's off the main thing, or I'd love it like a novella or a short story about the Red King. What's he? How did he get to that spot?
Like how did he get locked out? Like you said, where's the key? Took the key from him.
Guys, I left my badge at my desk. If anybody could let me in, I just.
Stephen King being Stephen King, it would be something like the whole story would be epic, and then he there's something out there that he has to get on the balcony, and he puts like a brick, and somebody walks by just as he's coming back and goes, "Why is this thing here?" And he gets locked out. That's the end. It's like, again. You can't get good help nowadays.
The door shuts. No.
Who's cool on the outside? Shut this door. Were you born in a barn?
I can't.
He's banging on the door. I was born in a barn.
I can't.
I do have a question. The guy who was telling jokes to them and like killing them with his jokes. Was that a oh my god, I just lost the name. It from It.
Pennywise.
Pennywise.
No.
Was that a Pennywise creature?
I had to look it up because I was like, it sounds like that, but it's like a relative of his, right? They're sort of the same species, right? And
so I think
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Stephen King actually got asked that question when he was on the King Cast, and he said that it could be a relative or it could be a similar species, because Pennywise fed off fear. So fear and so he would kind of create that every time he would come around. He'd create the fear in the town and kind of feed off that emotion, whereas Dandelo fed off laughter and happiness. And so he was saying it could be a very similar creature.
Do you think that they took that idea and incorporated it into Monsters, Inc.?
We're just gonna find King connections everywhere.
The multiverse is real.
That's a good point. Like, they capture the kid's screams. You're right on, Ursi. That's what it is.
She's connected. Next thing we're gonna see is like Cersei, like the Always Sunny picture where Charlie's like sitting there and he's like got all the dots and he's like, it's here.
It's everywhere.
King is everywhere.
Like the second you said that, I was like, wait.
Because we're gonna find this out at some point, just like Father Callahan opened up a book and found his name in a Stephen King book. That's all of us. We're just in a Stephen King book.
I'm telling you,
we're
like
in
you said,
Stephen King's world.
We're the people singing.
I am a real person.
Cause a wheel. Oh my gosh. No, but yeah, that character, I like that. Like he was like, he got to roll in and he was like, oh, it's a trap. Like, I'm gonna get him. Like I knew something was up because it's like, he came out of nowhere, right? Like all of a sudden they're in this ghost town and there's just this one guy like, hey, what's up? You guys want to come have dinner? Like he's got good food. They've been on the road for how long? And all of a sudden this guy's got like a 5-course meal. Like what's going on? His bathroom's all nice and stuff. And they're just like, wow, like they're really fooled by like the illusion of it all. And then like after like they get him, everything's like rotten and like, you know what I mean? And like that was really cool. And he's like telling the jokes and like Roland's like laughing and like
I did like how the robot was stuttering Bill. That one, a good It connection there.
Oh, see, I have to read it. Like my husband, he read it. Like I'm telling you, my husband be on it with these books. I'm surprised he's not in this conversation. But he was, he read it and he was saying like, you know, he was finding like a little bit of the connections, but not as much. I don't know if, you know, it was just like a first read through or something, but there was as far as like the connection, I thought the only connection was just because they were like the similar species or something, but
yeah. It isn't as connected to the Dark Tower that I've seen. There's not like a lot of those direct connections that are in some of the books. But it does have its own kind of side universe, or the Derry has kind of its own side universe. Like some of the kids from It show up in 11/22/63 briefly.
Yeah, I've never read the books, but like I feel like from watching the movie and the miniseries back in the day, like I feel like it would fall into the Dark Tower pretty well. Like he just, you know, he found a door and that's how he, you know, he got the Derry or whatever. Or
it people love it, and it's a lot of people will cite that as their favorite Stephen King book. That one just, I think I read it at the wrong time in life because there's a very
cliffhanger.
Oh my god! With the eyebrow, get out of here!
Cliffhanger. Jeff.
Is it very? Oh no! I'm back. Maybe that was the internet telling me not to say what I was going to say. But I'll just say briefly. There's a very questionable scene toward the end of it that everyone who reads it goes, "What? How did this pass like the censors? And what was he thinking?"
Yeah, I've heard.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I had when I read it, I had kids, you know, approaching that age, and so I think that was why I'm like, that kind of ruins the whole book for me. I'm like,
yeah.
Why? What?
See, there's it's just
Oh no.
that was
All
a great one.
Hey, Stacy, send me that screenshot. The next time when we do this Dark Tower thing, that's going to be on the thumbnail.
That'll be my Twitter avatar now.
Yes.
Profile.
I think with like just going back to like what you said, like now that I have my daughter now, and things hit me a lot differently from before, because like I think of her with especially with everything going on in the world, right? Like I immediately just try to think of like my daughter, right? And I think that's sort of why the thing with Jake really hit me hard, is just like because I think of like my daughter, right? And like my connection with like my child, and like how somebody can lose a child, and I'm just like, oh
yeah.
Like it definitely like got to me. And you see, I feel like I'm doing it a lot with like being a parent just changes the way that you perceive things. It's crazy,
100%. Don't ever, I will warn you right now, don't ever watch I Am Sam with me, because you will see a man ugly cry like you've never seen before.
Oh my!
I mean, you're not ugly crying during Up.
That's another one. Yeah, don't watch that one with me either.
It's weird. Like, I don't know. Like, my wife calls me a robot because there's not a lot of stuff that really gets me. And like, but like, yeah, like my son's 8 years old now, so anytime I see stuff that's in that area, I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, but here's the funny thing. Like, I don't cry at stuff, but the closest I've came as an adult was Marley and Me. You start messing with a man and his dog, and I'm just like,
forget about it. I can't even watch those movies. Like,
man.
Anything with like an animal, I'm like, no.
Yeah. No, like, shoot all the people you want. You don't touch the dog.
Don't mess with the dog. It's dogs. It's droids in Star Wars. Like you don't mess with the droids. You don't take out a droid. That's where you get all the tears from.
Yeah, that's why always my favorite. I'm just like, don't mess with the animals.
But yeah, wait, he went fighting. That was good for him. At least it wasn't something like dumb, Yeah. But I think, like I said earlier, it was just like him holding him and like being like, I'm sorry for talking to you the way that I did. And he goes, Oled. And I'm like, oh my God, it hurts my heart.
Well, guys, I think we're kind of coming to the end here, but I want to thank everyone who's watched or is going to watch this. But I think we should do a Dark Tower review on the movie. I think we should. We'll have to, get everybody to coordinate, and we could do it on my channel or anybody's channel, and we'll just come in and maybe it'll surprise us, and maybe we'll
set the bar so low.
The floor. We put it at the floor, so at least we got to be like, yeah, it was all right. Yeah, hopefully.
See, I try to give movies the benefit of the doubt. I really do. I try not to be like the worst, but sometimes we'll see.
I'm just gonna laugh. I'm just gonna let you guys all watch it, and I'm just gonna laugh and laugh.
I'm with it. I'm down.
Oh my God. Well, thank all you guys for hanging out with me here, and Brandy and Stacy for staying in the comments the whole time, entertaining us, and thank you, Jeff, for your your internet being awesome, and giving us the best moments. So
you have to. It was like perfect though. It was like on cliffhangers. So.
I can't even raise one eyebrow. I was jealous.
I want to see that.
All right. Thank you all for stopping by, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.